Hello everyone, and welcome back. This is the final part of my thoughts on the Beatles White Album 50th Anniversary Deluxe Box Set. This is where I'm going to talk about the overall package and try and touch on things that I didn't touch on during the first videos, and give my overall thoughts here on the whole package and things like that. Now, my last video I talked about the 5.1 mix, and previous to that I talked about the outtakes. I didn't go and mention some of my favorite outtakes on here that a lot of people are talking about as far as the unreleased stuff. I love the snippet of Elvis's "You're So Square Baby I Don't Care" that was done during the loud version of the Helter Skelter session. I love that version, and if the Beatles did a real rock and roll oldies album, I'm not talking about the Get Back stuff. If the Beatles did a real rock and roll oldies album, that's the way I'd want to hear them. I also love that they included the jam sessions that happened during I Will. So I'm glad we finally got an official release of Can You Take Me Back. I know some people are like, you know, that jam was good enough to be a track, but I like the way it's sort of hidden between Cry Baby Cry and Revolution Number 9. Sort of I always like the spookiness of that being there. It's kind of eerie. After Cry Baby Cried, all of a sudden here, Can You Take Me Back Where I Came From? It's kind of like the preamble to going into a nightmare. And Good Night is coming out of that nightmare. So I love the way they sequence it, but I'm happy that we have that. I'm happy that we have the version of Blue Moon, even though maybe it shouldn't be a part of the album, but maybe it should. I don't know, but I like the jam sessions that were included by Paul, John, and Ringo during that. Now, a couple of things that I've heard as far as criticisms and my take on it, which I understand. I definitely understand some of the criticisms of this set, and there's always going to be criticisms. Us Beatle fans, we like things to be our own individual way sometimes. So what I may like may not be what you like. Overall, I'm happy with this package. I'm happy with the pictures. Somebody was complaining about the box set. It's supposed to be a white cover, and you have the pictures of the 4 Beatles on here. Now, this is the CD box set. It's not the 4-edition vinyl box set, the 4-record vinyl box set. You take the slip cover off, and you still got a white cover. In fact, if you want to, you don't need to keep this. You could toss this in the garbage if you want to. I don't see why you would, but normally people do that with slip covers. This is just a slip cover. That is all that is on here. So it's still a white cover. I like the liner notes in the package. I like specifically the session notes, the song-by-song details that Kevin Howlett did, especially the way he did it on the Sgt. Pepper box. I like those notes. Some people, I've heard a few saying that some of the essays were totally unnecessary and they could have been better. I don't know how much more you need. I think Paul could have written a better foreword, is what I think. It seemed like it was tossed off. Like, okay, I got 10 minutes to write something. Here you go. Stick it in the box set. But I'm glad he did write something. Of course, Ringo can never be bothered. But it would have been interesting to hear his take on things here. But I would have liked Giles, and I would have he was more in-depth in his notes, sort of in-depth in his notes on the Sgt. Pepper box. I would have liked to hear him talk more about his choices for mixing in this set. But he's given plenty of interviews out there. Some of the criticisms that I originally had over some of the mixes, which were not too many, they were not too many. My biggest gripe was Helter Skelter. I was a bit underwhelmed by it, but I've since played it multiple times, and I have since compared it to the 1968 stereo and the 1968 mono. Now let me just say that there's a number of people that I know who swear by the mono mix of the White Album. The Beatles by this time cared, they cared about them both, but some of the mixes for mono were done first, some of the mixes for stereo were done first, all depending on the song. Or in the case of Revolution 1 and Revolution 9, they were never mixed for mono other than a fold down of the stereo. They collapsed it, they re-EQ'd it, and boom, there it is, because they were considered too difficult to remix for mono. So they were mixed for stereo first, and the mono on the mono mixes on the mono set are fold downs. Some people like that mono album. I know a few people who swear by the mono. Their version of Helter Skelter is the mono mix that fades out and doesn't fade back in and goes directly into Long, Long, Long. The version that fades back in and Ringo's saying, "I've got blisters on my fingers," is a fake version. I've had conversations with people like that. But the Beatles wanted the mono mixes to be different because around this time, and if any of you have read Ken Scott's book, Paul went to Ken Scott and said, let's make the mono and stereo vastly different. Because around this time they were being told by fans that the mono mixes and stereo mixes were different. And this time they're like, let's make them specifically different and we can increase album sales that way. That way people can buy a stereo and a mono. In America, the Americans never got the mono mixes. So we were always accustomed to the stereo, because by November of '68, mono was totally phased out. So I listened to the 2018 stereo, the 1968 stereo, and the 1968 mono, and I think what Giles was trying to do with the 2018 stereo mix of Helter Skelter, I think he was trying to do a compromise between the stereo mix and the mono mix. The mono mix of Helter Skelter, the vocal is much louder and the drums are much louder and the vocal is drier, which explains why the vocal attack is louder and the guitar attack is a bit quieter in the new mix. But it's definitely an in-your-face vocal and not that busy of a track in mono. And there's not that much guitar feedback, and the breakdown that happens towards the end with the guitar rundown, it ends in feedback, and the feedback gradually fades down, and then Ringo's drum just comes in. And then all heck breaks loose, fades out, and goes in Long, Long, Long. So I think what Giles was trying to do was give a balance between the mono and stereo. And if that's what he was trying to do, I accept it. I like the new mixes, but I'm one of those Beatle fans that always eventually thought of those stereo mixes as afterthoughts. Not when I was growing up. That's how I heard them. But as I got older and I heard cooler stereo mixes from other bands, cooler mixes like Electric Ladyland by Jimi Hendrix, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd, you could go further and say OK Computer by Radiohead. You know, having that headphone experience, my favorite band and my favorite obsession was leaving me flat when I would put the headphones on. It became frustrating. Now, the White Album is a very good stereo mix. Some of the mixes were kind of lazy, as I said before. You have a mono backing track and artificially double-tracked stereo vocals. They did that on Obla Di Obla Da, and they did that on Birthday. So now you got a nice spread. So I'm one of those people who like, hey, start from, go ahead and remix Help. Forget the 87 remix. Do a proper stereo mix of Help with a decent spread on the having the drums center and the vocals more up front. Have a decent stereo mix of Rubber Soul. The 87 mix could go by the wayside, which is what we have out there. And do a decent stereo mix of Revolver. And I came to that conclusion when the Yellow Submarine song track came out. I was like, my gosh, what they did with these stereo mixes are very good. Let's leave the mono mixes alone, but make the mono mixes readily available. And redo the stereo mixes. I know that's kind of messing with our childhood in a way. But those stereo mixes, in retrospect now, I get frustrated with. But it's still good music, and it's great to hear when you're not wearing headphones. But I love that new stereo mix of Sgt. Pepper. It gave me the buzz that I got in the mono mix. The stereo mix, you know, there were certain things in the mono, like the phasing effects and all that, that were not there in the stereo. The 2017 mix of that gave me that again. But the White Album, like I said before, I didn't know what they can do with it. I like the stereo mix that he did. Is it perfect? Maybe not. But it's down to personal preference by this time. You may not like it, and it's okay if you don't like it. I do like it, and it's okay that I do like it, because I know we are very diverse. We're a very diverse fan community, us being Beatle fans. Some of us are happy, some of us are never happy. Some of us, only want to keep the original vinyl editions. Some people like the Capitol US albums. Some people prefer the UK albums the way the Beatles originally wanted them. We are such a diverse group, but in my opinion, everything is welcome because it's the Beatles. And the more Beatles we have out there, the better. Overall, I'm very happy with this set. And if nothing else comes out as far as box sets from this point, I'll be fine. I don't think that's going to be the case, but I'm not rushing them to do an Abbey Road because I know that's on the tip of everybody's tongue. But I'm very happy with this. And the more Beatles out there, like I said, the better. But one more thing I want to add to this is that I like the fact with the outtakes and everything that they're doing here, they're showing the Beatles with clay feet. And that's one of the things that the Anthology Project did, the documentary and the CD sets. The Beatles with clay feet. That's how I want my heroes. I don't want them to be the golden gods on the stained glass window. And other icons like Elvis and Michael Jackson could benefit from being shown that they have clay feet. And I'm very happy that the Beatles and the team that they have behind them are doing just that. That's my take on this. And I appreciate everybody following me and subscribing to me. Thank you to my new subscribers. Spread the word. Who knows, if you spread the word, I may be one of those in people with Apple. I'll be invited to listening sessions. But thank you so much. I appreciate you. And leave me some comments. Keep them professional as always. And until we meet again.